Here are the top stories of this hour. 14 killed, many missing after flash floods in India. 5 killed in shelling attack in Syria. Plus, 5 students kidnapped by gunmen in Nigeria. Welcome to the World News and VOP TV. I am Kayla Abraham. No fewer than 14 persons have been killed and 102 missing after heavy rains caused by a Himalayan glacier lake in northeastern India to burst its banks, and rescuers being hampered by washed-out bridge and fast-flowing rivers on Thursdays. The Lled Lake in Sikkim state burst its banks on Wednesday, causing major flooding, which authorities stated had impacted the lives of 22,000 people. It is the latest deadly weather event in South Asia's mountains, being blamed on climate change. As of early Thursday, the State Disaster Management Agency mentioned that 26 people were injured and 102 were missing, 22 of which were army personnel. 11 bridges had been washed away as well. Video footage showed floodwaters surging into built-up areas where several houses collapsed, army bases and other facilities were damaged and vehicles submerged. Satellite imagery showed that nearly two-thirds of the lake seems to have been drained. The weather department warned of landslides and disruption to flights as more rain was expected over the next 2 days in parts of Sikkim and neighboring states. Now, the Syrian government has shelled a village in the rebel-held northwestern part of the country, killing at least 5 civilians, activists, and emergency early on Thursday. The shelling, which comes amid a rise in strikes in the rebel-held enclave in recent days, hit a family house on the outskirts of the village of Kafar Noran in western Aleppo province. Britain-based opposition war monitoring the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights stated that the dead included an elderly woman and 3 of her daughters and her son. It stated that 9 others from the family were injured. Neither Syria nor its key military ally Russia commented on the shelling, but Damascus says strikes in the northwestern province target armed insurgent groups. The Syrian pro-government newspaper disclosed that Syrian army had targeted the al-Qaeda-linked militant group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham in response to its shelling of government forces positions in southern Idlib. Now, gunmen in Nigeria have kidnapped 5 female students from a university in the northwestern Katsina state on Wednesday. The police disclosed this. This is the second of such abduction involving students in the region within a month. Kidnapping for ransom by armed gangs is rife in northwest Nigeria due to high levels of poverty, unemployment, and the proliferation of illegal firearms. Katsina police spokesman Abubakar Sadiq, in a statement, disclosed that the incident occurred early on Wednesday at the Federal University in Dutsinma town. He also added that the Nigerian police have deployed all its tactical and operational assets with a view to rescuing the victims unhurt, revealing they have a suspect already in custody. On September 22, at least 24 female students were abducted from their hostel in the Federal University Gusau in Zamfara State. 16 of them were freed 3 days later following a rescue operation by security forces. Now, Thai police has arrested 4 men suspected of illegally selling modified firearms to the teenager who opened fire in a luxury mall in Bangkok this week, killing 2 and wounding 5. 2 of the 4 were arrested in the Thai capital and 2 in the southern province of Yala on suspicion of selling a modified blank gun to the 14-year-old who has been charged with premeditated murder and illegal possession of a firearm. The men also had illegal firearms, 2 modified pistol, and narcotics in their possession. Mass shootings are rare in Thailand, but gun violence and gun ownership is common. Ownership rules are strict, but firearms can be modified and obtained illegally, many smuggled from abroad. The government also began closing legal loopholes regarding online sales in a bid to control the spread of weapons. Deputy spokesman Karom Phongphotklang disclosed in a statement that the government plans to ban import of blank guns, BB guns, and imitation firearms. Now, Typhoon Koinu has swept southern Taiwan on Thursday, injuring 190 people but causing no deaths as it brought pounding rain and record-breaking winds to the island, leading to school and office closure. Koinu, which means puppy in Japanese, made landfall early Thursday in Cape LOMB, the southernmost part of Taiwan, and is expected to weaken as it moves west toward Guangdong and Fujian province in southern China. The typhoon brought the fastest wind ever recorded in Taiwan as it approached Wednesday night. A weather monitoring station on outlying Orchard Island, southeast of the main island, measured a gust of nearly 213 miles per hour at night, as well as sustained winds that reached about 123 miles per hour that same night. Huang Chiamei, head of the Central Weather Administration's Taitang Weather Station, disclosed that both values set all-time highs since Taiwan began keeping records of wind speed in 1897. Now, Japan's wrecked Fukushima nuclear power plant has stated that it began releasing a second batch of treated radioactive wastewater into the sea on Thursday after the first round of discharges ended smoothly. Plant operator Tokyo Electric Power Company Holdings disclosed that workers activated a pump to dilute the treated water with large amounts of seawater, slowly sending the mixture into the ocean through an underground tunnel. The plant's first wastewater release began August 24 and ended September 11. During the 17-day first release, TEPCO noted that it discharged 7,800 tons of treated water from 10 tanks. About 1.34 million tons of radioactive wastewater is stored in about 1,000 tanks at the plant. The water has accumulated at the plant since it was crippled by a massive earthquake and tsunami in 2011. In the second discharge, TEPCO plans to release another 7,800 metric tons of treated wastewater into the Pacific Ocean over 17 days. TEPCO and the government say the wastewater is treated to reduce radioactive materials to safe levels and then is diluted with seawater to make it much safer than international standards. Meanwhile, officials from South Korea and Japan held a strategic dialogue after 9 years amid warming bilateral ties on Thursday. First Vice Foreign Minister Chan Ho-ching met his Japanese counterpart Masataka Okano in Seoul as Japan began the second phase of releasing treated water from the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant into the Pacific Ocean. Relations remained tensed for several years, but South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol, who took office last May, worked to improve ties. In March, in a major headway in ending a decades-long wartime labor dispute with Japan, Seoul said it will pay the victims through a local foundation. Yoon then traveled to Tokyo for talks with Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, becoming the first South Korean president to make a bilateral visit to Japan in 12 years. The strategic dialogue, established in 2005, had not taken place since the last meeting in October 2014. Still, South Korea has stated that it will launch a crackdown against illegal immigrants next week, which will last until December 9 on Thursday. The action will mainly focus on foreigners who work in entertainment services or those with criminal records, as well as companies that employ undocumented foreigners and their agents. Illegal immigrants caught in the crackdown will be ordered to pay fines before being deported and banned from re-entry. Those who volunteer to leave South Korea, however, will be exempt from fines and will be allowed to return. In 2022, the number of illegal immigrants in the Southeast Asian country were 411,270 compared with 355,126 in 2018. Now, the U.S. has sent roughly 1.1 million bullets seized from Iran last year to Ukraine. The U.S. Central Command CENTCOM, which oversees operations in the Middle East, says the rounds were confiscated from a ship bound for Yemen in December. Ukraine's Western allies recently warned that their production lines were struggling to keep up with the rate at which Ukraine was using ammunition. CENTCOM says the Iranian rounds were transferred to Ukraine on Monday. It added the ammunition was 7.62 millimeters caliber used in Soviet-era rifles and light machine guns. While the number is significant, it represents a small percentage of hundreds of millions of rounds already provided by allies to Ukraine. The U.S. has already provided more than 200 million bullets and grenades. The Iranian munitions were originally seized by U.S. naval forces from a stateless ship named Mawan 1 on 9 December. The U.S. government gained ownership of them in July through a process known as civil forfeiture, by which an asset can be seized if its owner is thought to be involved in criminal activity. In this case, the claim was brought against Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, a branch of the Iranian armed forces tasked with preserving the country's government. Meanwhile, Britain has warned that Russia might use sea mines to deter cargo vessels from using Ukrainian ports in the Black Sea. Since withdrawing from the Black Sea grain deal, Russia has been targeting Ukraine. In the statement, UK Foreign Secretary James Cleverly disclosed that Russia's pernicious targeting of civilian shipping in the Black Sea demonstrates Putin's total disregard for civilian lives and the needs of the world's most vulnerable. British intelligence reported that Russia has been targeting Ukraine's grain and civil infrastructure since July as part of attempts to disrupt Ukraine's grain export. Since the withdrawal from the Black Sea Grain Initiative, Russia has damaged 130 port infrastructure facilities in Odessa, Krasnoyarsk, and Reni. Russia also destroyed almost 3 million tons of grain, more than the total amount Russia promised to donate to African states, and enough to feed over 1.3 million people for a year. Now, a spokesperson for First Lady Jill Biden stated that U.S. President Joe Biden's dog, Commander, is no longer at the White House following a series of biting incidents involving White House staff and U.S. Secret Service officers. Making the announcement on Wednesday, Elizabeth Alexander, the First Lady's communications director, stated that the president and his wife cared deeply about the safety of White House staff and the security personnel who protect them. Alexander did not say where the 2-year-old German Shepherd purebred was sent or whether the move was permanent. Commander was last seen on Saturday at an upper balcony of the president's private quarters at the White House. Now, Kenya's President William Ruto on Wednesday has reshuffled 8 members of his cabinet and folded the Foreign Affairs Ministry into the office of the Chief Minister. The changes were necessary. Ruto disclosed that this effect is to optimize performance and enhance delivery as set out in the administration's manifesto. Ruto has faced a series of nationwide protests over the high cost of living and tax hikes since he took power in August 2022. Foreign Minister Alfred Mutua was transferred to the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife, while Trade Minister Moses Kaire Kuria was moved to the Ministry of Public Service. The Foreign Ministry was brought under the portfolio of the Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi. Mutua has been the public face of Kenya's offer to contribute 1,000 policemen to Haiti as part of multinational security mission that the United Nations authorized to help fight violent gangs that have largely overrun the capital of the Caribbean country. Ruto rose to power on the promise to champion the interest of impoverished hustlers, but his critics stated that tax rises in petrol and housing would hurt Kenyans already struggling to afford basic commodities such as maize, flour. Now, the new head of the powerful U.S. Senate Foreign Relations Committee have blocked some $235 million in military aid to Egypt after his predecessor was indicted in a corruption case linked to Cairo on Tuesday. He disclosed in a statement that Senator Ben Cardin, who replaced Bob Menendez, targeted by justice, informed the head of American diplomacy, Antony Blinken, that his blocking of funds will persist until specific progress on human rights is made. The Democratic senator is calling in particular for the release of some of the approximately 60,000 political prisoners in the country led by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. The State Department last month approved $1.215 billion in military aid to Egypt despite lingering concerns over human rights. The $235 million blocked by Ben Cardin are linked to respect for human rights, but the administration of President Joe Biden is in favor of sending it due to national security interest. At the end of September, Ben Cardin's predecessor, Bob Menendez, was indicted for corruption in New York. He is notably accused of having accepted bribes in exchange for using his influence to promote Egypt's interest in Washington. The Democrat denies these accusations, but was removed from the head of the U.S. Senate Foreign Affairs Committee. Egypt has been a major recipient of U.S. military aid since its historic decision to become the first Arab state to normalize relations with Israel in 1980. And that's it on the world news on VOP TV. VOP Business Show is coming up next. I'm Kayla Abraham.